Okay guys, so here we are again. What we're going to look now at is the building of paragraphs. And these paragraphs, as I've said previously, are meant to support the line of argument. So let's go back and look at what it was we were arguing in the first place. And it's this, okay? If your paragraphs do not support your line of argument, then they're pretty much useless. It's like getting a flat pack wardrobe from IKEA, having the nice instructions, and then realizing all the parts don't fit that. It's completely useless. So we are going to be arguing in every paragraph that, to a greater extent, imperial rivalries over African colonies between Britain and Germany fueled tensions, but the main source of imperial rivalry could be found in Europe between Russia and Austria. These tensions, combined with militarism, nationalism, and secret treaties, made war far more likely by 1914. So you could say that if we're going to do this chronologically, we want a paragraph on this. Let's just lay it all out first before we do anything else. Now you might look at this and say, actually, I have a different point of view, and this is not, by the way, in any way, shape, or form, a definitive answer. This is by way of showing you just about structure. So we want this can be number 2. We also want a paragraph on militarism. We want a paragraph on nationalism. We want a paragraph on treaties. So that could be 5 paragraphs. Each one of them has to support the line of argument. Now, let's have a look at. We want to jig this around slightly because if you're familiar with this topic area, you'd know that probably the issue of Europe comes before the issue of Britain and Germany in Africa. So you might want to, in this instance, you would rejig the intro, so we'd talk about Russia and Austria first. So here, what's a quick way of talking about imperial rivalries in Europe when it comes to Russia and Austria? Well, I'm going to create a paragraph now, the first paragraph, that's going to help show you how you would go about addressing the question and talking about providing evidence about Russia and Austria that would support the line of argument. Okay, so a quick bit of contextual history. Okay, so in 1871, the map of Europe fundamentally changed with the creation of the German Empire, which was born at France's expense as a result of the Franco-Prussian. Now, why am I telling you that? Because I'm going to explain how this leads into imperial rivalries. The Chancellor of Germany, occasionally you need to do a little bit of exposition. Otto von Bismarck created a system of imperial alliances by 1873, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia. I could go into a vast tract about how this is designed to exclude France, but I don't need to because we're focusing on empires. However, by 1878, this alliance had come under immense strain due to, and I bring us back to our key term, imperial rivalries in the Balkans, Southeastern Europe. Okay, I'm going to highlight that for a reason. Now, ideally, in your essays, you want to be able to come back to, in each paragraph, to the key issue. Let's look to see already, before I finish this paragraph, if I am supporting what we are talking about. So I'm working within the parameters of the dates that we've set down. 1871, so we're at the start. The map of Europe fundamentally changed with the creation of the German Empire, which was born at France's expense. Now, you have to sometimes do just a little bit of exposition or storytelling. The moment you start to find yourself becoming stressed by your own storytelling, to be going, oh, I'm losing myself, what am I going on about? Then you know you're drifting from the point. But sometimes you have to set the scene a little bit. Now, by 1878, this alliance had come under immense strain due to imperial rivalries in the Balkans. Okay, so a tiny little bit more storytelling. The decline of the Ottoman Empire had been a decline enhanced, had been exacerbated by the Russo-Turkish War of 1876 to 77, and by 1878 the Russians had had control over the wish to prevent Russia from fueling Slavic nationalism. Okay, so bit of typing there. So the decline of the Ottoman Empire throughout the 19th century had been exacerbated by the Russo-Turkish War of 1876-77, and by 1878 the Russians had control over the Balkans, in particular Serbia and Bulgaria. Some of the Balkans. Okay, we'll fiddle with that in a bit and refine it. This wasn't acceptable to the British Empire, so now we're coming back to the theme of imperial rivalries. You can be a bit more heavy-handed if you like and go, these were clearly imperial rivalries. So look at that paragraph already. How much of that is green? Green means sort of chiming with the line of argument. Already a significant amount. And so these are really kind of links in the chain. Let's finish off this paragraph and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it. So I go back to black, just a bit of typing and then we'll talk when. Now, there's a heck of a lot more to say on the Congress of Berlin, but you haven't got the time. You need to narrow down to focus on the question. So when Bismarck called a conference in Berlin in 1878 to decide over the future of Bulgaria, the Russians were prevented from having a large Bulgarian state to control and instead were humiliated. Bismarck had clearly sided with Austria. Now, the clever thing you can do here is we've already talked about militarism, nationalism, and secret treaties. This fueled Russian nationalism. So now we're linking to another part of the line of argument, and Tsar Alexander II vowed that Russia would not be humiliated in Europe again. Okay, so in one paragraph here, and this isn't the only thing you can say on the Balkans. There's plenty of other paragraphs. Let's make that the same green, shall we? I can't abide. There you go. So in 1871, the map of Europe fundamentally changed with the creation of the German Empire, which was born at France's expense as a result of the Franco-Prussian War. The Chancellor of Germany, Otto von Bismarck, created a system of imperial alliances by 1873, in which Germany, Austria-Hungary, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia. However, by 1878, this alliance had come under immense strain due to imperial rivalries in the Balkans. The decline of the Ottoman Empire throughout the 19th century had been exacerbated by the Russo-Turkish War of 1876 to 77, and by 1878, the Russians had control over the Balkans, in particularly Serbia and Bulgaria. This was unacceptable to the British Empire, that wished to see the Adriatic and Mediterranean seas free of Russian warships, and the Austrians, who had interest in the Balkans and wished to prevent Russia from fueling Slavic nationalism. At those 2 points, you don't need to say anything more. There are these kind of opportunities here to fly off into Waffle Central and go on and on and on and on about British designs and plans and Russian pan-Slavist stuff like that, and you don't need to, because you're remaining sharp and tight to the argument. When Bismarck called a conference in Berlin, the Congress of Berlin, in 1878, to decide over the future of Bulgaria, the Russians were prevented from having a large Bulgarian state to control and instead were humiliated. Bismarck clearly sided with Austria. This fueled Russian nationalism, and Tsar Alexander II vowed that Russia would not be humiliated in Europe again. Over the next decade, Bismarck's alliance began to unravel as Russia became gradually more and more alienated from Germany and Austria. So you could finally add, that spells out to an examiner most of what you're trying to say, but you could be clever and just add to the end. You could say, this would indicate that in Europe between 1871 and 1878, the conflicting ambitions of European empires led to increased tension and hostility. And these empires had long memories. And you see that we can show already through what we've written that statement is basically correct. Okay? So here's another takeaway from this video. You are simply there to show that the final bit of the paragraph has already been proven by everything else you've already said. Okay? Now, don't expect to be able to write this stuff straight away. This takes practice. It takes practice and practice and practice. And we'll be working out gradually as we go through how you schedule your practice in and how you get your repetition of this down. So again, don't worry about that right now. I'm just wanting you to look at the principle of what we're talking about here. And this is the principle of the first principle of the paragraph anyway, is that it supports the line of argument in everything that it does. It is like the leg of, or whatever the architectural term is, of the bridge. Okay? Right, on to the next video in a moment.